I want to introduce to you one of our partners who, when we were talking about this, he said, you guys are kind of the plumbing. Plumbing's not sexy, but you have to have it. Our partners get to have all the glory and do the sparkly things, right? Build the great applications on top of that, solve real problems. And while it may not be sexy to be the plumbing, you have to have it. And so I wanted to welcome, we're gonna have a session here with Mike Praeger from AvidXchange. And he's gonna talk about his business and how data has fueled the fire. And in this case, fire is a good thing, right? Fire is growth. And so I'm not gonna really spend a ton of time introducing Michael. He'll tell you his story, which is really exciting, and exciting for us to have been a part of that, and exciting that we can be a part of it for you as well. So Michael, welcome to the stage.
Thank you. All right, so it's always a little bit scary to be kind of the front guy for the product roadmap discussion, right? But so first of all, okay, imagine you guys are at a cocktail party, right? And Sanjoy and I are both there, and so we're at this, cocktail party, and people ask you what you do. So what's more exciting, to say, hey, we automate the accounts payable process for companies, or to say we automate, utility data? Well, that's, now you feel how, we feel like at all these cocktail parties, right? So we're doing everything we can to make this a little bit more exciting. So one, thanks for having me. It's been really, both a great and a long journey in terms of being partners with Urjanet, about 5 years or so. And certainly, as we've gone through our growth trajectory, so has Urjanet. And so kind of together, we've been kind of figuring this out. And so I thought I'd just share a little bit of our story. So just before doing that, I thought there was a great question that came up around earlier. What's the origin of the Urjanet name, right? Well, I get asked that same question quite frequently as well. And fortunately for us, we didn't kind of use the naming convention, the path that we were going down when we got started, because our first application was a very specific reverse auction bid platform for the real estate industry. And we were trying to get all kinds of naming conventions that supported like auctions and real estate. And thank God that we couldn't get either the domain or the trademark for any of them, which led us to create a brand new name that kind of stood for the enthusiastic exchange of information, which is what AvidXchange stands for. So this, we were kind of disappointed at the time. We couldn't get the name that we wanted, but turns out how our business has unfolded, we're very happy that we ended up not having a very specific industry name. So I'm the co-founder of AvidXchange, and we got started some time ago. But really, people ask me, Mike, you've been doing this for 19 years. Has it felt like it's been a long time? And my answer really is no, because I think it's really been accumulation of almost 5 different companies at different stages of our growth. And so what I thought I'd do is share with you that story and a little bit some of the pivots and catalysts for the different stages of our growth, of which Urjanet and our data analytics story is a key piece of. So first of all, what is our core purpose? So revolutionize how companies pay their bills. What does that mean? We automate the accounts payable and payment process for companies, typically middle market companies, enterprise organizations. And very simply, we eliminate the paper invoice and eliminate the paper check for our customers. And so you can imagine eliminating the paper invoice when a third of the transactions we heard from Sanjay earlier today are utility-based is a big deal for us. And figuring out strategies and how we eliminate that paper is kind of core to how we revolutionize this process for our customers. So the market, and this is pretty, give you context. Whether it be the middle market, the SMB market, between 60 to 80% of companies are still predominantly cutting paper checks as their primary payment method. This year at AvidXchange, we'll onboard just over 1,000 new logo customers to our platform, and like 900, 95 of those will probably be doing it for greenfield, means that they're converting from paper to electronic for the first time. So still, super early market. One of the things that we've heard a lot, from the early days, to just give you perspective of how far this market has come, is the number one barrier that we had for probably our first 10 plus years. We were going to talk to customers, is that, geez, we don't feel comfortable having our data in the cloud. Like, Mike, you need to have your service be like on premise, because we want it like, in our office under our own firewall. And that was really tough, because we thought from the beginning we were a pure SaaS platform. And that was a major sales objection that we had for probably the first 10 plus years. Well, now dial forward, if you went and back to those same companies and had the discussion, they would probably say, if it's not a SaaS-based platform, we don't want to talk to you. And so that's an interesting dynamic in terms of how the market's changed. So what we do as a company are really kind of 6 components. 4 of them relate to what we call for our buyer customer, and 2 of them for the supplier customer. Whether it be managing the underlying purchase order, procurement request, requisition, to then how it matches to that invoice. And there's a box in the middle called utility. And this is because we learned earlier today, 1/3 of all transactions are utility transactions. Our customers wanted very specific business process around how they manage their utility invoices, and more importantly, the data related to those invoices to be more value added for them. So I'll come back to that in a little bit. And then be able to execute the payment process. Then on the supplier side, it's about giving them tools on how they can manage their cash flow, have visibility to their invoice transactions, and how they actually can get paid electronically, and actually be in control of when they get paid by what we call Invoice Accelerator. So any of our suppliers at any point in the process can choose to have an Invoice Accelerator for next day payment just by raising their hand. So those are the 6 kind of components that we put together in a single software platform for our customers. So a little bit, Avid by the numbers. So we've been at this for a while. We have about 6,000 customers in the US today that are receiving invoices from about, just under 500,000 suppliers every month, making payments to those suppliers. And we've enrolled about 220,000 of those suppliers to be on our payment network, to receive electronic payments from us, and more importantly, receive all the data elements that they need to run their business back along with the payment. And just last year alone, we processed about over 120 billion through our platform. So what makes us unique in doing this is really, and it wasn't really by any great design, it's kind of by more happenstance in how we built the business and trying to solve problems for customers, is that we're unique in such that we put together 3 unique business processes in one platform. One around how that invoice gets managed and all the data elements that go with that invoice, how the payment gets managed and all the data elements to go with the payment, and then be able to provide our payment network and be able to accelerate invoices, and the data elements that allow us to understand the history between the buyer and the supplier and their invoice transactions to be able to say, yes, we want to accelerate this for a next day payment. So 3 unique processes is what really makes us special within one platform, all supported by rich data in all 3 phases. So the result of that is today we're seeing about a 3 times monetization of anybody else in the industry related to payments that we can settle electronically versus a paper check. The average across the top 20 US banks on B2B transactions, they're settling somewhere between 12 and 15%. And at AvidXchange, we're 45% plus, and that number continues to grow every month. We're currently onboarding over 1,000 new suppliers to our payment network to receive our payments electronically every month. I should say every week, actually, so it's about 1,000 per week. So our journey. And this is a kind of how data has really transformed our business in terms of some of these key pivots that we took along the way. So as I said, it's not really, to me, I don't really view AvidXchange as a 19-year-old company. I really view today that we're just entering kind of the 5th evolution of AvidXchange, and kind of the 4 previous segments. We're really about figuring the business out. I call that our 1.0. Our survival stage, every company goes to that, that survival stage once you get started. Then it's kind of that expansion stage. And then once you kind of expand, it's more about, kind of transforming the business, because a lot of the processes, people, systems that you had to kind of get to that point aren't necessarily the same things that you need to get to the next evolution of your growth. And then the scale factor. And I believe that we're in kind of our version of 5.0 today in terms of how we're scaling our platform. So dial back, I'll take you back in time. So, it's, 2000, 2001, and we're in kind of AvidXchange 1.0, figuring it out. And the first decision that we had to make as a company was we got involved in both having a bid platform for some of our companies, customers, in terms of how they outsource service contracts through a competitive bidding process. And then we also started building e-procurement and platform. And what we realized at the time was we didn't have money to do both. We didn't have resources enough to do both, and we had to pick one or the other. And so we decided to pick procurement and invoicing is the kind of the focus that we want to have going forward. So that brings us to really, 2.0, which is about invoice transactions. And then we said, what types of invoice transactions, in order to survive, we had to be really good at doing one thing really well. And we had a number of competitors, like every company has. And in order to really distinguish ourselves as really an early company, we said we have to be the best in the world at doing just one thing. And can we get really good at a certain type of transaction? And that led us to, again, our customers saying, we have a lot of pain around how our utilities get processed. And so we said, if we get really good at solving a type of transaction that customers have a lot of pain around, that's kind of a messy process, maybe we're on to something. And so that's when we really discovered utility data. And our ability to really, in the really early days, and this is before, we didn't know, UrgentNet at this time didn't even exist. We were, hoping that a company like UrgentNet would exist, but we were doing it really with paper and a lot of extraction, a lot of people. And then we started seeing the power of utility data. And so that's what led to then we discovered UrgentNet. And immediately we said, hey, if we can really collaborate on how they're going to market and attacking the utilities for electronic data, this could be a great partnership. And so that was about 5 years ago. And it's kind of grown and expanded every year. But really what I think of it is they allow us to take electronic utility data, and then using our software, we're able to really organize it super intelligently for all our customers in a way that they can use that data to drive business decisions. And that's kind of the impact in the business problem that we allow our customers to solve. So I'll come back to what type of decisions are our customers using data for in a second. So that platform we call UBAR. It's Utility Bill Analytics and Reporting. And what I'll say, it really allows our customers to do three things. It allows, one, areas of also, overusage. By where's your consumption that is, in excess of what it should be. Efficiency gaps, and then forecasting. And especially in companies like certain sectors, like real estate as an example, energy usage is a big part of the cost structure of that industry. And if you're not good at forecasting, you can imagine what it does to your budgeting process. So very specific, tangible things that people are doing with this data are where they have wasted energy. A great example, from a couple years ago, one of our customers, a Goodyear, they have like 2,000 locations around the country, and they recognized in one of their locations, not surprisingly down in Florida, that they had huge spikes in their electrical bill compared to other comparable locations. And this allowed them to investigate, and what they found out was that the workers at that location couldn't control the air conditioning, and it was set really cold. And so in order to warm up the bays that they were doing the work in, they kept the doors open all day long. And this is in Florida, in the summer, right? So in order to combat the air conditioning, they're opening up the doors, and you can imagine what that did to their, electrical bill. Well, this is a great example. By using our system, they immediately identified, those jumps in consumption, and were able to, actually allow the workers there to control the air conditioning themselves, so they didn't have to open up the doors. So very, simple, practical things are examples that our customers be able to use this for. So the other kind of piece is around forecasting, right? And what I'll say is, getting really good at forecasting, and anybody that has seen the ebbs and flows of utility data knows it's not a straight line across the entire year. There's lots of factors between average heating cooling days to how the activities that the companies actually do that significantly impact energy usage. And so, but using that data and get very granular around consumption data, our customers are able to do a much better job in how it gets used to forecast. And we actually have tools and reporting that allow the forecasting to happen automatically. So back in time, before we were able to deploy really the UrgentNet data as part of our solution, this is kind of the example of what the paper-based process looked like for somebody processing a paper-based utility bill. And by combining UrgentNet data along with the AvidXchange platform, it's gone from that picture to really a three-step process in terms of automatic coding. And the coding is actually an automatic process that they're reviewing to make sure it's correct, then approving it, and then the selection of how that bill gets paid. So it's gone from really a very cumbersome process to a very streamlined three-step process. And the impact has been really around four things. Obviously, lower costs, less people and labor components involved in the process, increased efficiency, and the big one is the third one, which is the intelligent data. So what we've been able to do is take that data, and then we said, what's next? So we were at conferences just like this one at AvidXchange. It was our user conference, 2010, 2011, and our customers just like you said, Mike and AvidXchange team, we now have all our utility bills electronically, thanks to this partnership that you have with UrgentNet, but we're paying all our electronic invoices with paper checks. That doesn't really make sense to us. Can you help us with that? My first reaction was, well, we're kind of a software company. We don't really make payments. I don't understand why they're not talking to their bank about this problem. And then after we've heard it enough, we brought several of our customers to Charlotte, where we're headquartered, to do a deep dive on why they were looking for a solution. And what we realized is the business process that translates into making a commercial bill pay on the B2B side payment is very different than the consumer payment. And the poster child for what we're solving for, one of our customers, Dick Carrigal from Kidder Matthews in Seattle, he stood up and he said, Mike, you need to solve for my problem. And I was a little worried because Dick's got very complicated problems. And he said, my problem is that I have 300 office buildings scattered across the country. We use 26 different banks, and we have 312 operating accounts, and I have 7 different accounting systems because of acquisitions we made. But I want to run one bill payment process across all my accounting systems, all my banks, all my bank accounts, across all my properties. Can you help me with that? And that was the genesis of what we solved for with our payment offering, which then we've included with it. And that was one of the growth catalysts for our business, which I refer to as kind of period 3.0 at AvidXchange. And the result of that was we built our utility payment network. So today, we're paying almost 5,000 utilities electronically. We provide a guarantee against 100% against all late fees as part of our platform. And it also creates a revenue share because by paying them through our payment network, there's economics that we're able to provide back to our customers in order to sometimes make this a profit center for them. So it ends up being a kind of real win experience because it makes them more efficient. They get their, they know their utility bills are going to be paid on time, and they're actually having almost a revenue source as part of this process. So that was kind of the growth stage. And then kind of the fourth stage for us is this transformational stage where we said, hey, now we have to really think about how we upgrade all our different processes to products, people, to really operate the next scale. The other thing that we want to do is how do we really kind of expand our distribution methods by creating more channel opportunities. So every time we think of kind of what's next, we think of, hey, are there leverage points? And we said, hey, I think there's leverage points because if somebody's going to ask about a better way to pay their utility bill, well, they may call Urginet, but they also may call their bank, or they may call their accounting system. And so we want to be really close to both the bank channel as well as the accounting partner channel to be able to integrate our solution. And that's been more the channel focus that we've had. We also formed a great partnership with MasterCard. MasterCard white labels our solution and distributes to their bank network as well. And so as part of our kind of transformational stage, we're also significantly able to increase our distribution. So that brings me to kind of the 5.0 scale. And that to me is kind of the phase of the company that we're in now. And it's really leveraging all the data elements that we've been able to accomplish today, as well as think about how we take them to the next level. So an example of that would be, our mission is how do we create, the most trusted, purchase-to-cash network in the middle market for our customers. And the word trusted we put in there because it's super important. And this goes back to customers having confidence that, one, the data is going to be available when they need it to make decisions, and B, that the payment is going to be made on the timeline that they need to be made by, so they don't get late fees, they don't get power or water shut off at a particular facility, and have confidence that if this process can be managed by a company like AvidXchange, it's going to work as they designed and create this efficiency, so they don't have to worry about it. And so we're super focused on how do we continue to provide more confidence to our customers around this process. And the more we can do in terms of moving to the underlying data rather than paper creates huge not only efficiencies but also confidence levels, because guess what? Do you have keying human entry, data entry errors happening when you're dealing with electronic data? Typically not. And there's all kinds of examples like that in terms of error rates that significantly go down once you move to a pure electronic process. And so for us, it's around how do we take this to the next level. One of the other areas that we're actually using data for is, what I'll say, on the payment side, to understand the analytics around the history between an invoice and a payment. And that's kind of the next thing that we're doing. But in terms of our strategic goals, we want to continue, evolve products. This is the tee up for the, the product session that's coming next, right? Because I think in Urginet, you're going to hear something very similar in terms of how they're evolving their products, upgrading our delivery capabilities. Almost by definition, at the rate that we're growing, all our processes break every 18 months, and we have to kind of continuously renew our processes. And then building our team, right? And how we kind of build scale into the people that we're hiring. But the last thing I'll leave you with is how we're using data going forward in the future. As an example, would be to use it as part of the decisioning process of what invoices can be advanced for next day payment. And for the financial people in the room, this might be a little scary, but we do this with zero financial credit underwriting. All we do is look at the history of the analytics of the history between that buyer and supplier and the types of invoices that get paid. And you can imagine when you look at the history of utility invoices, it really doesn't matter as much about the credit worthiness of the parties in a transaction, because typically the utilities get paid. And so we use those type of data elements to determine which invoices we can accelerate for next day payment as part of satisfying that value proposition for our customer. So that's kind of the quick upshot from AvidXchange. And so for us, really data has been the catalyst for all the innovation that we've done, whether it be for how we've advanced our invoice product, whether it be for getting into the payments business, or now the invoice business. Data has been kind of key to that underlying platform. I'm not sure if we have a minute or two for questions, but happy to take questions from anybody related to either AvidXchange or how we're working with Urginet. There's one over here. I guess we got some mics coming.
Thanks. Can you talk a little bit more about the revenue that's created through paying these invoices in a timely manner?
So great. So on the AvidPay network, we enroll suppliers And so overall in our network, we have about 6 or 7 different payment methods that suppliers can opt into and how they want to get paid. 2 of the ones that we consider part of our core network are that they opt into either receiving a payment through a virtual card transaction or through what we call AvidPay Direct, which is where they want to receive all the rich remittance data in an automated way sent to them, either through an API or through a file, and they'll pay a fee for that data. In the case of the virtual card, they'll pay a fee to MasterCard, Visa as part of their merchant acquiring process. So we get a portion of that revenue back, and then we share that with our customers. So that's how it actually ends up being, in some cases, a profit center for our customers. Question in the back.
Yes. What does version 6.0 look like for your company?
I don't know. Somebody else asked me that, and I'm like, to me, we just started 5.0. But I think scaling is probably going to be a longer period than the other periods that we had, earlier in our existence. And I think the scaling period is probably, instead of being kind of a 3 to 5 year journey, is probably going to be more of a 5 to 10 year journey. But the other piece, what I would say is, my guess is that there's additional data elements that we're going to be able to provide, almost like data as a service, that we're not even thinking about today. And I think that's the part that's exciting, is how do we continue to think about how we use this underlying data to provide more value. The team's got lots of ideas around that, and I think that's probably going to be the next. So if I had to come back here in a few years, we won't be back here because Sanjay will probably have to rent the Mercedes Stadium to have the user conference at that point. But my message probably be more it's around how data has become a service that we're able to provide in many different ways for our customer. Yeah.
So I'm curious, do you think of the utilities as customers in this case with this ePay thing, or is it really the end users who are customers, or both?
That's a great question, because historically, as we grew up, before we got into the payments business, we always thought of our buyer customers as the customers because they use our software. Well, once we started in the payments business, then we started our payment network. We said, actually, these are our customers as well, because we're actually going out and enrolling them to be part of our network. So what we call today is we have 2 sets of customers. We have buyer customers and supplier customers. And we, for us to, our network to continue to grow the way it's growing, we have to be very focused on how we provide the right value proposition to both sets of customers.
Can you elaborate a little bit more about the partnership between AvidXchange and Urginet?
Yeah, so I think it all relates to being super collaborative around how we're building out all these different connections to the different utility providers, right? Is one, and probably we probably drive the team a little bit crazy in terms of matching our priorities of which vendors are next versus matching some of the other priorities of other Urginet customers in terms of where do we go next in terms of the next utility to automate or integrate with. So I would say it's really around collaborative, kind of jointly driving kind of that roadmap on how we integrate to which suppliers and which ones are the most important ones. And then I think the next evolution is what else can we do together? Whether it's some of the other business models that Sanjay was talking about, payment would be an example of one where I think we're going to be very collaborative around and continue to think about how we support Urginet in some of the other business models that probably provide a nice overlap to some of the business models that we're thinking about. Yep. Yeah. You can go ahead and yell.
I'm just curious about what type of strategy you employ when dealing with integrations with legacy systems, technology or business side.
Yep. Yes, it's hard. And the reason why it's hard, so one of the things that we did for our first 10 years before we even got into the payments business is, by definition, for our platform to work, we had to be highly integrated to the core accounting system of our customers. today we're integrated to about, I think the number is 152 different accounting systems. And people say, well, geez, I didn't even know there was 152. I think our team has a roadmap of 260. And what I'll say is operating the middle market is super hard because, I think it's easy at the enterprise level and I think it's easy at the SMB level because the enterprise, you really have to integrate to, SAP and Oracle. You kind of have that market cornered. In the SMB market, you really have to integrate to QuickBooks and you have that market cornered. But in the middle market, you have these 260 different accounting systems that make it really hard. And guess what? Like, maybe of those 260, maybe 30 of them, what I'll say are, kind of built for SaaS, API type of integrations. And then you have kind of a hodgepodge in the middle of, kind of legacy, systems that people have evolved to create more, move from, on-premise to cloud, which they're kind of a mix of, sophistication of APIs. And then you have, the remaining ones, which are really legacy, really proprietary, still, on-premise, and they're super hard to integrate to. And it's like a needle in a haystack trying to find a consultant that knows anything about those systems that can actually help you. So, it's really a blend of all those that our team deals with every day. So the question is, what percentage is paid by virtual cards? I think we're averaging today on the utility side about between 32 and 35%. Overall, as a company across all of them, we're in the mid 40s. On the utility side, it's 32%, and that number keeps growing. And so, a great example of this is where, kind of RPA and robotics comes in is utility may say, hey, AvidXchange, we're happy to take it, but in order to take it, you have to log into our portal and apply it to the exact invoice and account numbers that you're paying. And if you do that for us, we'll take it. But if not, then just send us a check. And so that's a good example where we've been able to utilize technology to automatically make some of those payments. And I think that's a great example where the UrgentNet partnership will even be able to take that to the next level for us.
Noticeably absent is the discussion of blockchain. Where's that on your roadmap?
Yeah. Oh, I love this question. Especially, you go to these fintech conferences and you get like 5 of those. So here's what I think about blockchain. I think blockchain for us is almost like, the database question. Should we be in the business of building our own database, or should we leverage, like Microsoft or Oracle? And I think of blockchain as something similar. I think it's really a foundation-related technology. I think there's some interesting aspects around security and storage. But I think those are kind of foundation-related problems, and then we're going to be consumers of those offerings. So I think there's going to be companies out there that are solving those, kind of foundational blockchain use cases and creating very specific use cases. And then we'll become consumers of some of those use cases that affect our business versus us, doing deep R&D and developing our own, infrastructure related to, say, a blockchain application. Any other questions? Are we on time? Okay. Well, thank you. And Sanjay, so the next time you have me back, is it going to be the Mercedes-Benz Stadium because we have so many customers? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.